Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast from Warsaw, Poland. I'm Gaurav Sawant. US President Joe Biden met Ukraine's defense and foreign ministers. He's also interacting with displaced people from Ukraine, taking first-hand stock of the situation and the humanitarian crisis. Over the course of the next half hour, India Today's biggest team of reporters from Ground Zero, from Kyiv to Kharkiv to Moscow to the Donbass region, will get you the latest on ground in this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It's a fight between democracy and autocracy, a fight of the free world versus autocrats and oligarchs. US President Joe Biden interacting with soldiers of the 82nd Airborne Division made it very clear that they were in this for the long haul. They were in this to protect the free world. He, of course, did talk about how the people of Ukraine were fighting very hard to protect their interests, their freedom, and their principles and values. The US president also had an interaction with the defense and foreign ministers of Ukraine here in Warsaw. He's holding a series of meetings, meeting humanitarian aid workers, meeting refugees. His aim is to firsthand understand the problems that they are facing. But as far as Ukraine is concerned, Ukraine is demanding a lot of military hardware, offensive weapons, fighter jets, surface-to-air missiles, missile defense shield system, the S-300, and also boots on ground. Whether it is declaring a no-fly zone or talking about fighter jets, the US is not too keen on that. Does that indicate that Ukraine will continue to fight with smaller weapons in terms of anti-tank guided missiles and surface-to-air Stinger missiles, javelins and Stingers, and not the tanks, the fighter jets and the S-300 systems that they so desperately need? Russian nuclear submarines sailed out in the North Atlantic Ocean. That was a very clear signal being sent out by the Russian President Vladimir Putin to America and to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries not to interfere in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. The United States is watching these developments very closely. Of course, there is also a change in Russia's stance. It has failed to capture both Kyiv and Kharkiv, major cities in Ukraine. Is there a change in stance in terms of Russia now saying that their aim is to consolidate in the east, the Donbass region, Donetsk and Luhansk? Our report gets you more on the consolidation in the east and the nuclear saber rattling.
Ukraine is bleeding and fighting, second month into invasion war. While Russia has failed to capture major cities of Ukraine, it has indulged in a dangerous game of nuclear brinkmanship. It has now emerged that Vladimir Putin played out a major act of nuclear blackmail. Just hours after putting his nuclear forces on a special state of alert, Moscow had escalated its nuclear posturing. Several Russian submarines capable of carrying 16 ballistic missiles each had sailed into the North Atlantic. In a clear message, an act of nuclear muscle flexing. According to reports, Russian President Vladimir Putin sent the nuclear submarines into the North Atlantic one day after issuing a chilling threat to the West. European media reports, however, suggest that this was mere posturing rather than a genuine nuclear threat. Since then, the submarines have returned to Russian bases. But not before spooking nuclear watchers in the West. Putin has the world's largest stockpile of nuclear warheads, thousands of which are thought to be tactical and designed to eliminate enemy targets in a specific area without causing widespread devastation. And this isn't the first time Moscow is using nuclear deterrence and offensive strategy. In 2014, Putin used a similar strategy during the annexation of Crimea, moving nukes around in a chilling act of threat. With a possible nuclear threat around the corner, the Western intelligence continues to keep a closer eye on Putin's nuclear arsenal. According to a Western official, there has been no evidence of nuclear warheads being loaded onto missiles destined for Ukraine so far in the conflict.
According to reports, Russian President Vladimir Putin sent nuclear submarines into the North Atlantic one day after issuing a chilling threat to the West. Several Russian submarines capable of carrying 16 ballistic missiles each sailed into the North Atlantic.
Bureau Report, India Today.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin earlier had said that it was a difficult decision to decide to liberate the Donetsk and the Luhansk region, the Donbass region. Earlier, Russia was in control of 30% of both Luhansk and Donetsk, declared it as independent republics. Now we are told that Russians control virtually 93% of Luhansk and about 50% plus of the Donetsk region. Together, this forms the Donbass region. This is the industrial belt. It's extremely crucial. The Russian president insists that the situation was extremely grim. People there were being treated as cattle. They couldn't be permitted to be treated as second-rate citizens, and that explains his decision. That's, of course, the logic that the Russian president is giving. What's the situation on ground? Our next report tells you more.
We are here at the Matviv-Kurgan border. From here, we'll be crossing over to the Donetsk side. We have permits to do that, and so we'll be going the first Indian channel to reach the Donbass region, to reach Donetsk. With duty journalist Satya Rautre here at the Matviv-Kurgan border checkpoint. Geeta Mohan for India Today.
Amidst this raging war, there are now a separate set of guidelines for students, Indian students who are studying in border towns, especially places like Kharkiv. India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan spoke to some of these students who are in Kharkiv and are currently in the Russian town of Rostov. What are these restrictions? What is it that they are going through at this point of time, and what's their future? Our next report tells you about what's going through their minds.
While there were advisories, there were many universities that were not offering online classes, and that was another issue that the embassy in Ukraine was dealing with in the border towns of Kharkiv and so on. But over here, Russia has already said, the border town universities have already said that if you want to go back, if you think that there's a security risk, please leave. You can avail the online class facility. But अनुज यहाँ पर आप थर्ड ईयर स्टूडेंट हैं, काफ़ी समय से यहाँ पर हैं. जनरली क्या सेंस है आपके दोस्तों में जो रशियंस हैं इस माहौल को
अभी तो मैम इधर कुछ ऐसा है नहीं, अब तो सब नॉर्मली है इधर, और रशियन भी है वो भी बोलने की जरूरत नहीं होगा, सब नॉर्मली रहेगा इधर. दोस्तों बॉर्डर से काफ़ी दूर है, उससे पहले भी काफ़ी सिटी हैं जो बॉर्डर से दूर है, अगर कोई दिक्कत होगी तो पहले भी.
Manjesh, do you guys talk about the war situation and all? Do you guys talk about it with your friends? What's the sense?
just we are talking about in Russia we don't get any news about war, but our parents daily calling 2 to 3 times that tell us of war situation. We are seeing news and.
So you can't see news and get information, or your parents have more information from India?
I think our parents have more information. We don't have any information. When our parents call us, then we know real situation.
Okay, but you're just 75 kilometers from the border. Is that something that you keep monitoring on a daily basis?
But I think in Russia everything is normal, so we don't care.
Okay, so they feel quite safe and secure, but the Russian authorities have given them the option, and parents certainly are worried a lot in India because they have experienced what happened to Indian students in Ukraine, and that's why they continuously call the students and ask them for updates, taking updates themselves and ensuring that should there be any problem, they will be flown out immediately. In Rostov, with video journalist Satya Rautre, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
Amidst crippling sanctions imposed on Russia, there is now an acute shortage of medicines, with several pharmaceutical companies pulling out of Russia. While the Russian diplomats are talking about India occupying that space and Indian pharmaceuticals making bigger inroads in the Russian market, but that will take some time. That is still some time away, and until that happens, pharmaceutical companies, chemist shops, they are running really low on stocks. There is panic buying being done by people, and medicines are flying off the shelves, leading to an acute shortage of certain drugs. Our next report tells you more.
Second month of the war. Amidst devastation in Ukraine, sanctions hit Russia too continues to take a blow. Rising inflation and panic buying by Russians are the order of the day. Sanctions imposed by the West continue to impact every ordinary Russian. With several US-based drug makers deciding to put an end to their operations in Russia, citizens are panic buying essential medicines. Queues of patients can be seen lining up in Moscow's pharmacies, fearing a shortage. India Today visited pharmacies in Moscow's center, only to find that some essential medications mentioned in Russia's Vendomosti publication remain out of stock.
My case was searching for a medicine called Eutirox, or its substitute L-thyroxine. It's intended to help with thyroidal diseases, one that my grandma has. I checked multiple of pharmacies, but all of them were empty.
Russian pharmacies are finding it difficult to pay for deliveries. The medical crisis is a major immediate fallout of the sanctions which have cut off Russian banks from the international financial system SWIFT, used by many of those banks.
We're also announcing new sanctions of more than 400 individuals and entities in alignment with the European Union. More than 300 members of the Duma, oligarchs, and Russian defense companies that fuel the Russian war machine.
While Russian authorities claim that there are no problems with the production and supply of food and medicine, the on-ground reality speaks for itself.
People have to stand in queues and people have to make reservations, and they only can receive one this tablet and one of this medication for one person. So this is why we have seen the frightening Russians who were trying desperately to find this medication. Elna Banazarov, especially for India Today, reporting from Moscow.
Is Russia scaling back its ambitions? Have they changed the goalpost mid-war? Remember, initially Russian President Vladimir Putin had talked about a regime change in Kiev. He talked about demilitarization of Ukraine. But now, are Russian generals realizing that capturing Kiev is easier said than done? Second month of this conflict, is Russia now focusing only on the Donbass region, consolidating in the south and the east? Let's find out, because Russian generals seem to indicate that their entire aim is now Donetsk, Luhansk, Mariupol, a part of it, and the rest of the country may have to wait.
Ukrainian forces went on the offense against Russian soldiers on Friday, recapturing towns on the outskirts of the embattled capital, Kyiv. And 1 month after Russia sent a massive invasion force into Ukraine, expecting a rapid victory, Moscow signaled it was scaling back its military ambitions. The Russian Defense Ministry announced the first phase of what Russia calls its special military operation was complete, and that it would focus on completely, quote, liberating eastern Ukraine's Donbas region. Its forces remained bogged down, harried, and ambushed by Ukrainian defenders, and so far unable to claim a single major strategic objective, and now, in some places, may be forced into a retreat. A British intelligence report described, quote, Ukrainian counterattacks and Russian forces falling back on overextended supply lines has allowed Ukraine to reoccupy towns and defensive positions up to 35 kilometers east of Kyiv. One Ukrainian soldier on the front line in Bucha, about 16 miles from the capital, who gave only the name Andrei, said he enlisted immediately after Russia's invasion began a month ago.
I told my wife to grab the children and to hide in the basement, and I went to the drafting station and joined my unit straight away. And the next day, from the army base, we moved to the front line. My wife and children were under occupation for 2 weeks, but then they managed to escape through a humanitarian corridor.
Ukraine's armed forces chief of staff said Russia was still trying to resume offensives to capture the cities of Chernihiv, Sumy, Mariupol, and Kharkiv. Battle lines near Kyiv have been frozen for weeks. Failing to capture any major cities, the Russians have instead been encircling them, laying waste to residential areas and driving around a quarter of Ukraine's 44 million people from their homes. Natalia Stern, a refugee from the southern port city of Odessa, who is currently in Romania, had this to say on Friday.
Support. We need support. We believe in ourselves and believe strongly. Please support us and our children. A huge thanks for you all in advance.
Is the West resorting to cancel culture? Russian President Vladimir Putin has hit out at several Western countries for cancelling events that involved Russian artists, insisting that this was punishing artists unnecessarily and this action was unwarranted. And this comes after several Western countries and groups cancelled events where Russian artists were performing. We bring you this report.
31 days of war. Devastation across Ukraine. Putin unrelenting, unwilling to stop the carnage. Now, the Russian president is playing the victim. After starting a war that has seen the world turn against him, Putin is accusing the West of dirty tactics, of trying to wipe out Russian culture. Putin compared the move against a number of Russian cultural events in recent weeks with the actions of Nazi Germany in the 1930s. A number of events involving Russian cultural figures who have voiced support for the war have been cancelled. Books of Russian writers are being banned as well.
При полном попустительстве, а иногда и при поощрении правящих элит.
The infamous culture of cancellations has turned into cancellation of culture. Tchaikovsky, Shostakovich, Rachmaninov are being removed from concert programs. Russian writers and their books are being banned as well. Last time, such massive company of destruction of unsuitable literature was conducted almost 90 years ago by the Nazis in Germany. We know and remember very well the footage from film archives of books being burned.
Putin compared the situation of Russian writers to Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling after she sparked controversy with opinions on transgender issues.
Joanne Rowling, whose books were sold in hundreds of millions around the world, was cancelled because she displeased advocates of so-called gender freedoms. Today, they are trying to cancel whole country with a 1,000-year history. Our people. I'm talking about ongoing discrimination of everything to do with Russia.
Meanwhile, Rowling hit back at Russian president for dragging her into row over cancelling Russian culture. The writer said, critics of cancel culture are not best made by those slaughtering civilians. Since Putin sent Russian troops into Ukraine, Western nations have piled several sanctions on Moscow to force Russia to end the war.
The maintenance of sanctions, the increasing the pain, and the demonstration why I asked for this NATO meeting today is to be sure that after a month we will sustain what we're doing, not just next month, the following month, but for the remainder of this entire year. That's what will stop him.
The sanctions have left Russia isolated, politically and financially. Sadly, Russian sports and culture have become part of the collateral damage. Bureau Report, India Today.
India Today has the biggest team of reporters on ground covering this conflict from Kyiv to Kharkiv, from Warsaw to Moscow, and of course now the Donbass region. India Today's foreign affairs editor Geeta Mohan is traveling to the Donbass region, to Donetsk and Luhansk from the other side, to bring you a series of reports. But before that, we get you this report that Geeta Mohan has filed before she left for Donetsk and Luhansk.
Battling the crippling sanctions imposed by the world, Russia is facing the worst economic crisis in the last 20 years. However, Putin remains undeterred and continues to unleash its wrath on Ukraine. India Today is in Moscow, and we decided to speak to common Russians to find out what their view is of the war and of the global isolation their country faces. Russians largely are backing their leader and stating that they are not feeling the pinch of the sanctions.
Has she felt any scarcity in getting medicines or supplies?
No problem in getting medicines.
Many believe there should be peace, but call themselves patriots and support Putin.
I am a patriot. I support Putin.
Of course. The invasion has seen several international banks and business brands halt their operations in Russia, and Russians have a special message for them.
Russia, at this point in time, is fighting a war of an existential war, a threat that Russia feels with the NATO allies coming together and NATO's expansion into Ukraine. That's the reason why the action that they justify in Ukraine. Russians over here saying that they do not require these brands if it means compromising Russia's security.
Many reports suggested that banking services have been hit, but for now things seem to be smooth. Many Russians believe that there would be big issues in the coming weeks.
Is everything available? Is money scarce because of sanctions? Has he faced any problems?
Конечно, of course. It's the beginning of big trouble.
Putin's regime has been convincing citizens that there is no shortage of essential supplies and food. But rural parts of Russia have started to feel the effects of war, with people hoarding essentials as scarcity looms. Now, many citizens fear that the crisis could soon reach big cities. With Geeta Mohan in Moscow, Bureau Report, India Today.
As this conflict enters its second month, we will continue to report from ground zero. But that is all that camera person Lalit Joshi and I have on this special broadcast from Warsaw, Poland. Many thanks for watching. For all the latest news and updates, keep watching India Today.